The life and legacy of St. Charles Borromeo, reformer, shepherd, and St. Charles Borromeo, 1538 to 1584, stands among the greatest figures of the Catholic Counter-Reformation. A man whose deep humility, pastoral zeal, and reforming spirit helped renew a church in crisis. Born on October 2, 1538, in Arona, in the Duchy of Milan, Charles was the third of 6 children in a noble family. His father, Count Gilbert Borromeo, and his mother, Margaret de' Medici, were of high status. His maternal uncle, Giovanni Angelo de' Medici, would later become Pope Pius IV. Despite his privileged upbringing, Charles was drawn early toward a life of service to the church rather than one of worldly ambition. Even as a child, Charles showed unusual seriousness and devotion. At age 12, he dedicated himself to the service of God, receiving a portion of the family wealth to manage as his own. Rather than indulging in luxury, he used the money to help the poor and to pursue his studies. Though he had a speech impediment, he excelled intellectually and spiritually. His sharp mind and disciplined character led him to the University of Pavia, where he earned a doctorate in both civil and canon law in 1559. That same year, his uncle was elected Pope Pius IV, and Charles's life changed dramatically. The new pope quickly recognized his nephew's gifts and appointed him cardinal and archbishop of Milan when Charles was only 22. The pope also made him head of the Consulta, effectively the Secretary of State, a position of enormous power in the Vatican. Yet despite the privileges of his office, Charles's heart was fixed on reform and spiritual renewal rather than personal gain. Leadership at the Council of Trent, the 16th century, was a time of great turmoil for the Church. The Protestant Reformation had spread across Europe, challenging Catholic doctrine and exposing corruption among clergy. In response, the Church convened the Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, to clarify doctrine, address abuses, and renew ecclesial life. Pope Pius IV entrusted his young nephew Charles with a central role in reconvening and guiding the Council's final sessions 1562 to 1563. Charles proved to be a capable and faithful administrator. His influence helped the Council issue key reforms regarding the sacraments, clerical discipline, and the education of priests. He also oversaw the creation of the Catechism of the Council of Trent, 1566, a comprehensive summary of Catholic teaching that became a cornerstone of catechesis for centuries. When the council concluded, Charles worked tirelessly to ensure that its decrees were implemented throughout the Church. He saw clearly that the true reform of the Church must begin with the reform of the clergy and the sanctification of individuals. For him, doctrine and discipline were inseparable from holiness of life. Archbishop of Milan, a true shepherd in 1564, at the age of 26, Charles was ordained a priest, and soon after, he was consecrated bishop and formally installed as Archbishop of Milan. His diocese, one of the largest and most influential in Europe, had been neglected for decades. Many parishes were without priests, monasteries were lax, and moral and liturgical abuses were widespread. Charles immediately began to restore order and holiness. He visited every parish in his vast diocese, more than 1,000 in total, often traveling on foot or horseback through dangerous terrain. He personally inspected churches, questioned priests, and preached to the people. He sought to simplify worship, eliminate the sale of indulgences, and renew religious education. Recognizing that the ignorance of the clergy was a root cause of corruption, he founded seminaries and colleges in Milan, Invergo, and Solano to properly form future priests. He also encouraged the Jesuits to establish schools for lay students and founded the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine (CCD) to provide systematic religious education for children, a precursor to modern Sunday schools. Charles's reforms were not without resistance. Many clergy resented his strict enforcement of discipline, and some powerful groups opposed his moral authority. Among these were the members of the religious order known as the Humiliati, who plotted to assassinate him. In 1569, while Charles was praying in his private chapel, a gunman fired at him from close range. Miraculously, the bullet struck his vestments but did not harm him. Far from retaliating, Charles pleaded for mercy on behalf of his would-be assassins, demonstrating the forgiveness and charity that defined his ministry. The shepherd during the plague, Charles's greatest test came during the devastating plague that struck Milan in 1576 to 1578. As the plague spread, panic ensued. The governor and many nobles fled the city, but Charles refused to leave his flock. He organized hospitals and relief centers, sold his own possessions to feed the hungry, and personally visited the sick and dying. Witnesses recalled seeing him walking barefoot through the streets with a rope around his neck and a relic of the Holy Cross in his hands, leading penitential processions and begging God's mercy for his people. During the famine and plague, he fed thousands daily, even going deeply into debt to provide for the needy. His self-sacrificial leadership transformed him into a symbol of Christ-like compassion. When criticized for exposing himself to danger, he replied simply, "A good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep." Reformer and spiritual father. Borromeo's reforms extended beyond administrative structures to the moral and spiritual life of both clergy and laity. He emphasized the importance of prayer, confession, and the Eucharist, urging priests to be living examples of holiness. He wrote extensively pastoral letters, catechetical instructions, spiritual reflections, many of which are still read today for their clarity and depth. He often reminded priests, "Be kind rather than severe. Win hearts through love, for harshness will not bring a sinner to God." This pastoral wisdom revealed his deep understanding of human weakness and divine mercy. He also practiced personal austerity fasting, wearing simple clothing, and living modestly despite his noble background. Though of frail health, he continually mortified himself, believing that personal sacrifice was essential for spiritual leadership. In addition to his diocesan reforms, Charles founded the Oblates of St. Ambrose, later known as the Oblates of St. Charles, a community of priests committed to living in obedience and service under their bishop. This model of clerical fraternity and pastoral dedication became influential throughout Europe. Conflict and perseverance. Charles's uncompromising dedication to reform inevitably led to conflict. He clashed with secular authorities, including the Milanese Senate and the Spanish Viceroy, over the independence of the Church. Some accused him of overstepping his bounds, others of excessive rigor. Yet his patience, humility, and faith disarmed many opponents. His authority derived not from coercion, but from integrity. His leadership style offers a powerful lesson for modern times. True reform requires courage, constancy, and love. He refused to let corruption or fear determine his actions, remaining steadfast in his mission to bring holiness and order to the Church. Final years in death, in the final years of his life, Charles's relentless work began to take a toll on his body. He suffered from fever, fatigue, and a painful skin infection. Despite his illness, he continued to travel and preach, visiting parishes and encouraging his priests. In 1584, after returning from a visit to the Swiss region of Ascona where he had founded another college, he fell gravely ill. On November 3, 1584, at the age of 46, he died in Milan, surrounded by his fellow clergy. His body was placed in the crypt of Milan's cathedral, where it remains to this day. The people of Milan mourned deeply for their beloved shepherd. His sanctity was soon recognized across Europe. He was canonized by Pope Paul V in 1610. His feast day is celebrated each year on November 4th. Legacy and patronage. St. Charles Borromeo is venerated as the patron saint of bishops, cardinals, seminarians, catechists, and spiritual. Letters a fitting tribute to a man who dedicated his life to forming faithful clergy and instructing the next generation in the truths of the faith. Some traditions also invoke him as patron of stomach ailments, dieters, and those struggling with obesity, though these later associations are likely symbolic of his self-control and asceticism rather than historical fact. More importantly, his life continues to inspire Christians to embrace reform not as rebellion, but as renewal. Charles understood that genuine change begins not with condemnation of others, but with personal conversion. His motto could well have been that of the Council of Trent itself: the Church must be reformed in head and members. His example calls today's leaders, religious and secular alike, to integrity, humility, and compassion. He demonstrated that holiness and competence are not opposites, but partners in true leadership. In a world that often prizes ambition over service, St. Charles Borromeo stands as a model of spiritual authority rooted in love. Reflection. St. Charles Borromeo's story invites reflection on the meaning of leadership, sacrifice, and holiness in times of crisis. His life bridges the gap between intellectual rigor and pastoral care, between reform and mercy. He was a man who walked among the poor, stood firm against corruption, and sought to embody Christ's love in practical and courageous ways. For seminarians and catechists, he remains a model of faithful teaching. For bishops and cardinals, he is a reminder that the shepherd's first duty is to his flock, not to political convenience. For the laity, his life shows that sanctity is attainable through charity, humility, and perseverance. His prayerful endurance during plague and famine offers special meaning for believers in every generation, especially in times of pandemic, social division, or spiritual weariness. His courage teaches that no crisis is beyond the reach of faith, and no act of charity is too small to reflect the love of God. Conclusion. St. Charles Borromeo lived only 46 years, yet his impact shaped the Church for centuries. A noble by birth but a servant by choice, he used his power not for himself but for the glory of God and the good of souls. His reforms strengthened the Catholic Church in one of its most difficult eras, and his example of holiness continues to guide those who seek renewal in every age. As the Church celebrates his feast on November 4th, we are called to imitate his virtues: humility in leadership, courage in adversity, and love in all things. May his life remind us that true reform begins in the heart and that holiness, once lived authentically, has the power to transform the world. Be who you were created to be, St. Charles might say to us, and you will set the Church on fire.